Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now in today's video we're going to be doing a restoration and run on this. It's Project Doodoo. It's a Wltoys 12428. Now long story short, I actually won this in a competition. It was run on YouTube by a gentleman that goes by the name of KSR Nate. I'll put a link in the description to his channel. He does lots of modification videos and top speed runs with Wltoys and all sorts of stuff. The channel's very entertaining. I strongly recommend you go and have a visit of it and have a look. Anyway, I won this in a competition that he set. And this is pretty much how it came to me actually. It's absolutely knackered. But that's what we're going to be doing today actually. We're going to be restoring this. I'm going to make a bit of a sleeper out of it. We're going to be keeping all the rough looking bodywork and basically changing all the internals. Now I've had this thing for absolutely months and I've been meaning to do something with it for ages. And I finally gathered some of the various bits together that I'll need to complete the project basically, because we're doing a full restoration on this baby. He would be actually dead proud of it because I've got a great big 3660 brushless motor to shove it up it. But we're going to renew all the electronics. So I've got me Brushless ESC here. We're going to be linking it to some FlySky receiver. And like I say, we're just going to give it a thorough going over. It's going to be a bit of a sleeper because I'm keeping all the shoddy bodywork. I haven't as yet found another wheel for it. But I think I've pretty much got everything else to complete the project. And this is a very, very well used example, but by the time I finish with it, it'll be belting. So without further ado, we're going to crack on. I'm going to start at the front end because it needs some new steering hubs and I've got some drive shafts for this thing. I probably actually could have bought one of these brand new for what it's cost me in all the bits, but where's the fun in that? Anyway, enough waffle. Let's get cracking. Oh, by the way, I will leave links in the description to as much of the bits and pieces that I used in this build, so if you guys want to replicate it, you can do. Anyway, let's crack on. Now this thing has been used and abused. Everything that you could imagine on the front suspension has got play in it. But to be honest, it's quite refreshing to see something that has been used this much. So he must have got his use out of it and had some fun with it. But what we're going to do, like I said, I've got some steering hubs, I've got some more drive shafts. I'm going to see if we can't tighten a few bits and pieces up. The front suspension rods are bent, but that's not too much of a problem because I've got a new set here. So what I'm going to do is start taking all this lot apart and swap everything that I can. The steering servo is going to have to come out because we're going to have to swap it out for a 3-wire one and all the motor, etc. But anyway, let's get these hubs on and let's sort the front end out first. And this is where we're at so far. Steering hubs are on. We've got brand new drive shafts. We've got some brand new suspension links or brackets here. All the play has been basically removed. I've tightened up these two pins here, which are basically the pivot pins for the wishbones. What I'm going to look at now is a steering linkage, or this little steering slide here. It's got loads and loads of play in it. It would be a shame to remove all the play out of the suspension at the front and then leave that loose. Somebody has given me ages ago one of these alloy steering sliders, so I'm going to try and make that fit in there because that's pretty tight. Now shock absorber wise, I might try and fill these full of grease and see if that doesn't give me some damping rather than faff about trying to convert them to oil. I might just put a seal in the bottom and shove some grease in and see if that does the trick. Anyway, I've removed the steering servo as well because we're going to put a 3-wire one in because we want to swap the electronics. It doesn't take the Wltoys 5-wire job. So anyway, I'm going to take this lot off, see if I can't sort this this steering slider out and replace it with this nice little alloy one. Now before I refit them, I'm just going to show you what I'm doing with the shock absorbers, and it basically involves shoving a little O-ring inside the actual shock body itself. If you want a detailed video about this, go and check out the 12429 video I did on converting the oil shocks on there, because it's basically the same. All I'm using is a bit of WPL grease actually in one of these little sachets, but it does seem to do the job, and there is a reasonable amount of damping in this one I've done, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this will do the job. I'll put the front end back on, and that little blue alloy steering linkage, if you like, or slider, that's fitted. That's worked out quite well. The only problem is I think it must be slightly narrower than the original plastic one, because now when I've fitted the steering links back on, I've got quite a lot of toe out, so I might need to find either some adjustable links to replace these, or possibly get the little burner on them and just stretch them a fraction. Depends what I can find really to sort it out. Now I'm also started mocking up the motor here. Just put the mount on and the pinion gear. I mean, as you can see, it's quite, I don't know if you can see there, it's quite a lot larger than the original 540 can, and it only just sort of, there we go, it only just sort of fits in and clears the steering. So hopefully that bloody motor in this thing, it'll go like a clappers. Right, for my next trick, I've got to try and remove this sliding portion of the rear drive shaft off of this central reduction shaft, if you like. Now I've got to be very careful, because I'm going to use my burner to hopefully melt the glue stroke cement that hold these grub screws on, but not heat it up enough to actually damage this plastic gear. That's going to be the problem. So these are a pain in the backside. So hopefully, well, if I heat it up gently enough, hopefully I won't affect this plastic gear. But I've got to get this off, because basically what I'm doing is I'm replacing it with a metal drive shaft, because the new rear axle doesn't come with a shaft, and the old one is obviously broke inside of the old axle basically, so that's why it's getting replaced. So I'm going to get my little chef's burner, and I'm going to see if I can heat this up and remove these grub screws. Well, that was fairly touch and go. I almost gave up on it because I actually started to melt the base of the plastic gear here, but that is literally the first time I've ever managed to get anything like that off without catastrophically damaging something else. So little chef's burner for the win. Now, while I had the burner out, I actually tried to stretch these two steering rods out to try and get rid of that toe out, which I've almost done. It's about the same as the factory 12429, so I'm happy with that. I'm just going to leave it at that. So once again, the burner for the win. Quick update then, I've actually gone ahead and installed the motor and the chassis. I've also fixed this portion of the new metal drive shaft on to the reduction gear central shaft that I managed to get the old bit off, which is absolutely amazing. I'm now attempting to sort the electronics out. I've had to solder some 4mm connectors onto the ESC, because for some strange reason it didn't come with any, but that wasn't too much of a hassle. I've also bound a new FlySky receiver to my GT3C here. And now we're going to test it. Now, I have also taken the time to calibrate the ESC to the transmitter, which I suggest you do first. If you don't, you can make it do some really strange things, and I have had one catch fire as well. So I start calibrating them as soon as I turn them on. So far, fingers crossed, I haven't had an issue. I mean, to calibrate these little ESCs, it's dead easy. Basically, there's a little red button, you turn them on, and you press the button once when the transmitter is sort of in the neutral position. It flashes at you, then you give it full throttle, press the red button again, it flashes again twice, let release, full back, press the red button again, and it flashes 3 times, and that's it, it's calibrated. It's calibrated in the neutral, full throttle position and full reverse position as well. So anyway, let's quickly try this. Transmitter is on. Let's turn the ESC on. Okay, that's whizzing round now. So what have we got? Servo, check. Motor check. Now this is quite noisy, this is, and the front diff feels very tight. So what I might do before I actually give it a proper run is strip that diff and see what the crack is. Now the steering servo I'm using to convert it to 3-wire, because obviously the original one is 5, is actually off. It's a steering servo off an MN86K. So I'll leave a link in the description. So if you're after a servo to convert one of these 12 428s or 12 423s, you can't find one, an MN86K servo will actually do. So now I know all the electronics work, what I'm going to do is disconnect them, move on to the back end. I've already put the other half of the drive shaft onto my brand new rear axle here. So that's what we'll do, disconnect the electronics and start tackling the rear end. Right, I've removed the back end off the truck. I've taken the old brackets off the old axle and put them on the new one. These are the brackets that obviously the link's attached to. I've also split this new axle to check whether there's any lubricant in it. There is, so I'm happy with that, don't have to bother with that. Now we're replacing pretty much everything. We've got some new tie rods here, got some new shock absorbers, and I've been given these alloy lower links, if you like, the axle links, so I'm going to put those on. We're going to do what we did with the front ones. I'm going to bang a seal in them and then shove some grease in to give them a bit of damping. I'm not going to do anything fancy with them. So that's precisely what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put everything back together, and then we'll take it from there. Right then, that's the back end done, and there's a lot less play in everything. And I tell you what I am surprised about is how nice these shocks feel with just a bit of grease in. So, top tip. Right then, next up is finding a home for all the electronics, which is my least favourite part of building anything. So I roughly know where I'm going to stick them. But that's the next step. Right, I've pretty much finalised where all the electronics are going. ESC on top, receiver is there down below. I haven't quite worked out what I'm going to do with the on-off switch yet. I'd like to attach it to the bodywork somewhere to make it easy to get to. But I'm pretty sure that's the final locations of all the electronics. Now I did have a little problem with it. When I put the wheels on, I realised that the motor was rotated in the wrong direction. So I tried to reverse it on the transmitter. Obviously this didn't help because it only reversed, it just made backwards forwards and forwards backwards. So I was getting half speed forwards and full speed backwards. A quick search, because I'm not too au fait with brushless motors, but a quick search on the old YouTube there, and basically all you have to do if you want to reverse the direction that the brushless motor spins is swap 2 of the wires over, and that's it, jobs are good. So that was a nice easy fix. Don't know if that'll help anybody, it might do. Every day's a school day, as they say. Right then, the tyres are on, so the next job is to refit the bodywork. So here's where we're at with it. Now then, I've put the wheels on, put the bodywork on. Now I have a little confession to make. In my excitement, I took it out for a spin and forgot to take the camera. But to be honest, it was a little bit disappointing. Something not quite right about it. So I've brought it back in, had a quick look over it. I found 2 problems. The first of which is one of these dual battery mounting plugs, if you like. There must be a loose connection somewhere between the 2 pairs, because sometimes if you wiggle it, it cuts out. So that was the first issue. And the second issue, well, I got a lot of drag, and you can hear it when you're running it along. It wasn't very quick accelerating, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, because with that great big torquey motor and the 120 amp ESC, it should fly really, but it doesn't. But I did take it apart and noticed that this front diff is absolutely solid. I can barely turn it with my fingers, so God only knows what job the motor must have had. Anyway, it's got a brand new front diff in it now as well, and it does, I must admit, it does roll a lot better. It's a lot quieter. Anyway, I'm going to take it out again, and this time remember the camera. short and sweet. While I was out, I lost all my steering. I did give it a quick cursory glance by the side of the road, as it were, and couldn't see anything wrong with it, apart from the servo saver was doing too much saving and not enough servoing. Now, I did move the steering back and forth, and to me it didn't seem as though there was much resistance. But I've literally got it back home, squirted a bit of penetrating lube on that bloody alloy slider steering thing, and it started working again. So there must have been a bit of grit and dirt built up inside, and just enough to stop it. Like I say, it didn't feel too bad to me, but obviously it was just a bit too much for the servo saver. So anyway, I think I'm going to grease that alloy steering slider up. You can understand why people hate alloy parts on these, can't you? I'll grease it up and we'll try again. Right then, back inside, and second time's a charm. Didn't get any grief from the steering this time, so that bit of grief sorted that little alloy slider out. Okay, what did we think of the mods to Project Doodoo? Start with the shock absorber shocks. I'm not impressed with my idea of putting some oil, some grease in the shocks. I should have done it properly, really, and converted them to oil. Put the little O-rings in the caps. They're a little bit too firm, so it tends to bounce all over the place. It's not too bad when you're on the road, when you're on the tarmac. It does track quite straight, actually. I'm quite surprised. But they're a little bit too firm. It does tend to bounce around everywhere. It's gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, basically. Now, I did tot up cash-wise how much it's cost to do this, and I did get most of the bits and pieces either like on flash deals on Banggood or bought them off AliExpress. So you get them cheap, but you have to wait a decent amount of time. I reckon it's cost me about 55 quid approximately, which I don't think is too bad. That's not including the receiver and transmitter, obviously, because I've already bought them ages ago. But that's things like the ESC and the motor, etc, etc. Anyway, what did we think about the performance? Well, I'm going to be honest, I thought it'd be a bit quicker. But I think what I did was, when I chose the bits to do this, I might have just played it a bit too safe. Because I picked a really low kV motor to 2200. I picked a reasonably high ampage ESC, but it was a cheap one. I'm not sure if it is 120 amp actually, but I think I went a little bit too low with the kV on the motor, I think, and now because it doesn't feel any quicker than my 550 brushed 12429. It has got torque. It gives you the impression that because it's not particularly quick, it gives you the impression that the motor isn't generating a lot of power. But I think torque-wise, I think there's plenty of torque there, because it absolutely powers through wet grass like it wasn't there. So I think it's generating the torque it should be. Obviously, it's my fault. I think I've picked too low a kV motor. I think this setup would be better. Basically, I was hoping it would be a little bit more exciting. It's a bit like I've created the perfect vanilla vehicle. It's okay. It's just not very exciting. Well, I think this setup would probably be better in my 12429, and I get something a little bit more fruity for this, because all the hard work's done now. I mean, it'd be just a matter of plonking another motor and ESC in it, basically. But it's a little bit on the slow side. I was hoping it'd be a little bit more mental, a little bit more stupid, but it's quite sensible, really, which is probably in my head what I was going for, but my heart says I just won't go full retard with it. So what I might do is, like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but what I might do, I might put this setup, like I say, in my 12429, and I might try it with a fruitier higher kV motor in the future. Anyway, don't forget to check out KSR Nate's channel. I'll put like a link in the description. If you want to do, if you're into speed runs and performance Wltoys, buggies and stuff, go and check his channel out. It's a lot of fun. And just some of his trucks and that are just mental. As ever, if you're interested in any of the bits and pieces that I've used in the build, I will leave some links in the description to where you can go and get them from. As usual, if you found this video of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button for more similar future content. Stay tuned, because I think at some future point we're going to do Mark II, I think, and I think we're going to make it a little bit more exciting.